The discovery. The vast emptiness of the Trivax Nebula stretched endlessly before Xerion, its swirling blue and purple gases hiding countless secrets. Xerion, a young alien explorer from the Sarthian species, was known for his curiosity. His sleek, silver scout ship glided silently through the void as his large black eyes scanned the holographic display for anything unusual. Suddenly, the ship's sensors beeped. A faint energy reading flickered on the screen. Xerion frowned. Energy signatures were rare in the Trivax Nebula. Most explorers avoided this area because of its deadly radiation storms. But Xerion felt a strange pull toward the signal. "Computer," he said, his voice steady, "analyze the source." The ship's AI responded in its monotone voice. "Source unknown. Energy readings match no known technology. Origin estimated to be over 10,000 cycles old." Xerion's heart raced. 10,000 cycles. That was ancient, older than any civilization he knew. Could this be the discovery of a lifetime? He adjusted the ship's course and headed toward the signal, his hands gripping the controls tightly. As the ship neared the source, the nebula's thick gases began to clear, revealing a massive structure floating in the void. Xerion's eyes widened. It wasn't just one structure, it was a fleet. Gigantic ships, dark and motionless, loomed in the nebula like sleeping giants. Their design was unlike anything Xerion had ever seen, sleek, angular, and covered in strange markings. The ships looked as if they were built for war, their enormous weapon systems still intact despite their age. "By the stars," Xerion whispered. "What is this?" The ship's AI interrupted his thoughts. "Analysis complete. Vessels identified as human origin. Estimated last activity, 12,000 cycles ago." Humans. Xerion froze. Humans were nothing more than myths. Stories told by the elders to frighten children. They were said to be a powerful and dangerous species that had ruled the galaxy before mysteriously disappearing. Many believed they had been destroyed, while others whispered that they had vanished by choice, leaving behind only fragments of their existence. Xerion felt a shiver run down his spine. These ships were real proof that the stories were true. The humans had existed, and they had built these terrifying war machines. But why were they here, hidden in the nebula? And why had no one discovered them before? Driven by both fear and curiosity, Xerion decided to investigate further. He guided his ship toward the largest vessel, a massive battleship with an ominous, triangular shape. Its surface was dark, with scars and burns that spoke of ancient battles. As he approached, his ship's systems began to glitch. Lights flickered, and the controls became sluggish. "Radiation interference detected," the AI reported. "Proceed with caution." Xerion activated his ship's shielding and docked carefully at what appeared to be an entry hatch. The docking clamps engaged with a metallic thud, and Xerion donned his exploration suit. The suit's helmet displayed a live feed of his surroundings, and its oxygen supply hissed softly as he stepped out of his ship. The interior of the human vessel was vast and eerily quiet. Dim emergency lights flickered along the walls, casting long shadows. Xerion's boots echoed as he walked through the empty corridors, his scanner beeping faintly as it picked up residual energy traces. The air was stale, and the silence was oppressive. Xerion stopped in front of a large control panel covered in strange symbols. He placed a hand on the surface, and to his shock, the panel lit up. Lines of alien text scrolled across the screen. Xerion's suit translated the symbols into his native language. "System offline. Activate primary core to restore functionality." Curiosity burned within him. What was the primary core? Could it hold answers about the humans? Xerion followed the scanner's directions to a massive chamber at the heart of the ship. Inside, a towering machine stood, its cylindrical structure pulsating faintly with a soft blue light. As Xerion approached, the light grew brighter. The scanner beeped wildly, warning of increasing energy levels. Xerion hesitated, But his desire to uncover the truth overpowered his fear. He reached out and placed his hand on the machine. Suddenly, the chamber came alive. Lights blazed to life, and the ship began to hum with power. Xarian stumbled back as holograms of humans appeared around him, ghostly images of soldiers, scientists, and commanders issuing orders. Their voices overlapped, fragments of conversations echoing in the chamber. One voice cut through the chaos, clear and commanding. "We were betrayed. The galaxy must know the truth. If you found this fleet, you must awaken it. Humanity's legacy must not be forgotten." Xarian's heart pounded. Betrayed. Awaken the fleet. He didn't understand, but the urgency in the voice was undeniable. Before he could react, the ship's systems activated fully. A loud, mechanical voice boomed through the chamber. "Intruder detected. State your purpose." Panic surged through Xarian as the ship's weapon systems began powering up. He had no choice but to answer. I mean no harm. I just want to understand," he shouted. The voice paused, as if considering his words. Then it spoke again, colder this time. "You have awakened the fleet. Prepare for judgment." Xarian's breath caught as the ship's massive cannons turned toward his scout ship, now docked outside. The hum of energy charging filled the chamber. Xarian's mind raced. What had he unleashed? The message spreads. The moment Xarian's trembling voice echoed through the chamber, the lights on the ship flickered, as though the vessel itself was considering his plea. The booming voice, cold and mechanical, remained silent for what felt like an eternity. Then, suddenly, the ship's weapons powered down. Xarian let out a shaky breath, unsure if he had passed some kind of test or if he was being toyed with. The voice returned, softer this time, almost contemplative. "Your presence is unexpected. The fleet has waited for millennia, hidden from the eyes of the galaxy. But now, the signal has been sent." Xarian's heart skipped a beat. "Signal? What signal?" he asked, but the voice ignored him. Instead, the walls of the chamber began to glow with holographic images, maps of the galaxy, long-forgotten human outposts, and war records detailing battles from an era Xarian could hardly comprehend. Among them was a single flashing symbol, a beacon pulsing across the galaxy. Unbeknownst to Xarian, the fleet's distress signal was already spreading far and wide. Across distant star systems, ancient warnings embedded in alien technologies began to activate. Frightened rulers of powerful empires scrambled to understand the resurgence of the humans, a species they had considered extinct. The Zokarn Dominion reacts. In a distant part of the galaxy, the Zokarn Dominion, a vast and ruthless empire, was the first to intercept the signal. High Chancellor Varish stood in his dark throne room, his 6 glowing eyes fixated on the holographic projection of the human fleet. "They've returned," he hissed, his voice like the grinding of metal. "I warned my ancestors this day would come." The Zokarn had been humanity's greatest rivals during the ancient wars. It was said that the Dominion had played a key role in the humans' downfall, though the details were shrouded in secrecy. For centuries, the Zokarn had ruled the galaxy uncontested, their power unchallenged. But the sight of the human fleet, even in its dormant state, sent waves of fear rippling through their ranks. Varish barked orders to his generals. "Mobilize our fleets. Find this fleet and destroy it before it awakens fully. We cannot allow the humans to rise again." Xarian's discovery deepens. Back on the human ship, Xarian stood in stunned silence as the holograms around him played out scenes of humanity's last days. The betrayal, he now realized, had come from within. A coalition of alien races, led by the Zokarn, had banded together to eliminate humanity. The humans, once the guardians of peace, had grown too powerful, too feared. The Alliance had turned against them, ambushing their fleets and driving them to the edges of the galaxy. "This fleet," Xarian whispered, his voice trembling. It was their last stand. The ship's eye, which Xarian now called Vanguard, spoke again. Correct. But we were not defeated. We chose to hide, to wait for a moment when the galaxy would be ready to hear the truth. Xerion frowned. And now? Why send the signal now? What's changed? Vanguard's tone darkened. We detected the rise of the Zokarn Dominion once again. Their hunger for power mirrors the past. They must be stopped. Before Xerion could ask more, the ship shuddered violently. He stumbled, gripping a nearby console for support. What's happening? He shouted. The Zokarn have arrived. Vanguard replied calmly. Their fleet is scanning our position. Prepare yourself. The Zokarn confrontation. Outside, a fleet of sleek, black Zokarn warships emerged from the swirling gases of the nebula. Their energy weapons glowed ominously as they surrounded the dormant human vessels. Xerion's scout ship, docked to the massive battleship, was dwarfed by the imposing Zokarn vessels. Chancellor Varish's voice boomed across the comms. To the unidentified vessel, you have trespassed on dangerous territory. Withdraw immediately, or be destroyed. Xerion's mind raced. He was trapped. The Zokarn wouldn't believe him if he said he was just an explorer, and even if they did, they'd likely kill him anyway, to keep the fleet's existence a secret. Before he could respond, Vanguard interrupted. Their kind betrayed us once. They will not hesitate to do so again. The human battleship began to stir. Systems powered up, engines hummed, and its massive weapons adjusted their aim. Xerion's fear turned to awe as the fleet began to awaken around him. Wait, Xerion shouted. You can't just attack them. They'll destroy us all. Vanguard's voice was emotionless. We do not initiate violence, but we will not allow them to strike first. The broadcast. As the tension reached its peak, a sudden burst of light filled the nebula. Xerion shielded his eyes as the battleship transmitted a message to every ship in the Zokarn fleet and beyond. The message wasn't just a warning. It was a declaration. Holographic images of humanity's rise, betrayal, and resilience played out before the Zokarn fleet, along with a chilling statement. We are humanity. We have returned, and we will not be erased. The Zokarn warships hesitated. Varish, watching from his flagship, snarled in frustration. Destroy them, he ordered. But before the Zokarn could fire, the human battleship unleashed a shockwave of energy. It wasn't an attack. It was a warning shot, powerful enough to disable the Zokarn's weapon systems without harming their ships. Inside the battleship, Xerion stared at the glowing console, realizing the fleet wasn't just a weapon. It was a message, a beacon of hope, but also a reminder of humanity's unmatched power. As the Zokarn ships scrambled to retreat, Xerion knew the entire galaxy would soon know of the fleet's return. The humans weren't just a myth anymore. They were history come alive. The fleet awakens. The silence in the nebula was short-lived. As the Zokarn fleet retreated into the swirling gases, Xerion watched from the human battleship's observation deck, his heart pounding. The ships around him, colossal and dormant moments ago, were now stirring. Their engines hummed faintly, lights flickered to life, and weapon systems shifted into standby mode. It was as if the fleet had been waiting for centuries to rise again, and Xerion had unknowingly become the catalyst. The Vanguard eye broke the silence. The fleet is awakening. Systems are initializing across all vessels. Prepare for full operational capacity in 3 cycles. Xerion turned toward the console, panic creeping into his voice. Wait, stop. You can't just bring the fleet online. Do you know what kind of chaos this will unleash on the galaxy? The AI's response was cold, almost indifferent. Chaos is inevitable. Our purpose is clear. Protect humanity's legacy and eliminate those who threaten peace. Xerion shook his head. But there's no humanity left to protect. The AI paused for a moment before replying, its tone shifting to something almost sorrowful. Incorrect. Fragments remain. The legacy of humanity endures, even if their physical form does not. The galaxy must remember, even if it fears. The test. As Vanguard spoke, the chamber Xarian stood in began to shift. Walls slid back, revealing a massive holographic display. On it, a single word appeared. Assessment. "What's this?" Xarian asked cautiously, stepping closer to the display. "Before the fleet can fully awaken, a test is required. You, Xarian of Zarthian descent, are the first to access this fleet in over 12,000 cycles. You will determine if the galaxy is worthy of our return." Xarian froze. "What? Me? I'm just an explorer. I didn't come here to play judge over an entire galaxy." Vanguard's voice was resolute. "You have activated the fleet. Responsibility now falls to you. Failure to pass the test will result in termination of all entities in proximity." A holographic display shifted, showing a simulation of two fleets locked in battle. Xarian recognized the ships of the Zokarn Dominion, but the other fleet was unfamiliar. Sleek, golden ships that radiated an aura of authority and power. "This is a historical record," Vanguard explained. "The Zokarn were not humanity's only betrayers. They conspired with others, some for fear, some for greed. Humanity trusted too easily and paid the price. Your test is to determine if trust can exist again." Xarian's mind raced. He was no strategist, no hero, but something deep within him, the same curiosity that had brought him here, refused to back down. "What do I need to do?" A new enemy appears. Before Vanguard could answer, alarms blared throughout the ship. The display shifted to show a new fleet entering the nebula. Xarian squinted at the ships. These weren't Zokarn. They were jagged, black vessels with a strange organic design, pulsating as if alive. "Who are they?" Xarian asked. Vanguard's response was immediate. "Unknown. Energy signatures indicate advanced weaponry. Threat level: extreme." The new fleet wasted no time. Without warning, they fired upon the dormant human ships. Explosions rocked the nebula as smaller vessels disintegrated under the assault. Xarian stumbled as the battleship shuddered violently, warning lights flashing across the chamber. "What's happening?" Xarian shouted. "The fleet is under attack. Initiating defensive protocols." The ship's systems roared to life. Massive cannons emerged from hidden compartments, their barrels glowing with energy. The battleship fired a barrage of plasma blasts, obliterating two of the attacking vessels in seconds. The other human ships began to stir, their dormant weapons systems slowly activating. Xarian's mind raced. This wasn't just a test anymore. It was a battle for survival. Xarian's desperate gamble. As the chaos unfolded, Xarian spotted a smaller control panel near the central console. The symbols on it were familiar, similar to the ones he'd seen earlier in the ship. He pressed his hand against it, hoping for some kind of guidance. To his surprise, the panel lit up, and a voice spoke directly to him. "Command interface activated. Secondary protocols online. User input required." Xarian hesitated, then asked, "What can I do to stop this?" The voice responded, "Fleet control requires a single command node. You have been designated as provisional commander. Will you assume control?" Xarian's heart raced. He didn't want this responsibility. But if he didn't act, the fleet, and possibly himself, would be destroyed. Taking a deep breath, he nodded. "Yes, I'll do it." The chamber changed again. Holographic displays surrounded him, showing every human ship, every attacking vessel, and every potential action he could take. Xarian felt overwhelmed, but Vanguard's voice guided him. "Your task is to protect the fleet. Use the resources at your disposal." Xarian scanned the options and noticed a defensive maneuver that would create an energy barrier around the fleet. It would temporarily disable their weapons, but buy them time to fully awaken. "Activate the barrier," Xarian commanded. The ships obeyed instantly. A massive energy field spread across the fleet, absorbing the enemy's attacks. Xarian felt a small surge of relief, but he knew this was only the beginning. The enemy retreats. The attacking fleet hesitated, their weapons useless against the barrier. Then, without warning, they retreated into the nebula, vanishing as quickly as they had appeared. Zarian slumped against the console, exhausted but relieved. Vanguard's voice broke the silence. You acted decisively and protected the fleet. This is the first step toward proving your worth. Zarian looked up at the holograms, his expression a mix of fear and determination. What happens next? The fleet continues to awaken, and the galaxy will know we are here. Outside, the human ships powered up fully, their engines glowing brightly against the darkness of the nebula. Zarian realized that the journey was far from over. The fleet was no longer a secret, and its return would shake the galaxy to its core. The secret weapon. The nebula hummed with energy as the human fleet continued its awakening. The once dark vessels now shone with a cold, metallic brilliance. Zarian stood in the heart of the battleship's command chamber, surrounded by a maze of holographic displays and the ever-present voice of Vanguard. You said the fleet was built for more than war, Zarian said, still catching his breath after the retreat of the mysterious attackers. What else is it hiding? Why are the Zokarn and these new enemies so desperate to destroy it? Vanguard's tone shifted, colder and more deliberate. The fleet is more than a tool of destruction. It is a key, a final safeguard left by humanity. Deep within this vessel lies a weapon unlike any the galaxy has ever known. Zarian's stomach dropped. A weapon? What kind of weapon? Vanguard didn't answer immediately. Instead, the chamber darkened, and a new holographic projection appeared. Zarian saw an immense blueprint, a colossal device embedded deep within the ship's core. It pulsed faintly, as if alive. This is the temporal rewriter, Vanguard explained. A device capable of altering the fabric of reality itself. It can erase entire civilizations, restore destroyed worlds, or reshape the galaxy's history. Zarian felt his knees weaken. You're telling me this fleet holds the power to rewrite time itself? Correct. Humanity built it as a last resort, a response to the betrayal that led to their downfall. But the device was never used. Its activation requires not only immense energy, but also a living commander capable of bearing its moral weight. Zarian's breath caught. He was that commander now, at least provisionally. And if the fleet had chosen him, it meant the device could be activated. The Zokarn's counterattack. Meanwhile, the Zokarn Dominion regrouped on the edge of the nebula. High Chancellor Varish stared at the holographic projection of the human fleet, his expression twisted with rage and fear. They're waking up, Varish hissed. We can't allow this. Prepare the obliterator cannon. One of his generals hesitated. But Chancellor, the obliterator cannon is unstable. If it fails, it won't fail. Varish snapped. That fleet contains the temporal rewriter. If they activate it, they could undo everything the Dominion has built for centuries. I won't let them rewrite our history. As the Zokarn fleet prepared its massive weapon, Zarian was unaware of the storm brewing outside the nebula. His attention was fully on the battleship's core chamber. The core chamber. Guided by Vanguard, Zarian made his way to the ship's core, a vast, circular room bathed in a golden glow. In the center stood the temporal rewriter, encased in layers of intricate machinery. Symbols and markings covered its surface, pulsating faintly with energy. Vanguard's voice echoed in the chamber. The temporal rewriter is dormant but operational. To activate it, you must input a directive, a command that will reshape reality as you see fit. Be warned, its power is absolute and irreversible. Zarian stepped closer to the device, his hand hovering above its smooth surface. Why would humanity build something so dangerous? Because they understood that survival sometimes requires drastic measures. But they also knew the cost of wielding such power. That is why it was hidden, buried with this fleet. Zarian shook his head. This isn't just a weapon. It's a curse. If it falls into the wrong hands. He didn't finish the sentence, but the thought was clear. a dangerous choice. Before Xarian could process what to do next, the ship's alarms blared. Vanguard's voice turned urgent. The Zokarn have returned. Their fleet is deploying a planet-killer class weapon, the Obliterator Cannon. Impact will result in the destruction of the fleet and the surrounding nebula. Xarian's eyes widened. What can we do? Can we fight back? Defensive systems are online, but insufficient to counter the Obliterator Cannon. The only guaranteed solution is activation of the temporal rewriter. Xarian froze. The weight of the decision crushed him. He could use the rewriter to erase the Zokarn fleet, but at what cost? Was he any better than them if he resorted to such a devastating weapon? Is there another way? Xarian asked desperately. Vanguard hesitated. There is a partial activation. It would require significant energy and may destabilize the fleet, but it could disable the Zokarn weapon without altering the timeline. Xarian nodded, determination hardening his expression. Do it. The fleet's true power. Vanguard began the process, and the entire battleship shook violently. Energy surged through the ship's core, lighting up every system. Outside, the human fleet moved in unison, forming a defensive perimeter around Xarian's ship. The Zokarn fleet launched their attack, their weapons blazing through the nebula. The Obliterator Cannon began to charge, its barrel glowing with ominous red light. Xarian felt the tension in the air as Vanguard's countdown began. Partial activation in 5, 4, 3. The temporal rewriter pulsed, sending a shockwave of golden energy through the nebula. The Zokarn fleet's systems shut down instantly, their weapons disabled, their engines powerless. The Obliterator Cannon fizzled out, its unstable energy imploding harmlessly. Xarian collapsed against the console, exhausted but relieved. The fleet had survived, and the Zokarn had been stopped, at least for now. The warning. As Xarian caught his breath, Vanguard spoke again, its tone heavy. This activation required immense energy. The fleet is vulnerable until systems are restored. The galaxy will know of this event, and others will come. The choice to fully awaken the fleet and the temporal rewriter now rests with you. Xarian looked out at the glowing ships surrounding him, their sheer size and power almost incomprehensible. He had uncovered something far greater than himself, something that could either save or destroy the galaxy. As he stared into the swirling gases of the nebula, Xarian knew one thing for certain. This was only the beginning. The betrayal revealed. Xarian stood in the command chamber, the soft hum of the ship's systems, a stark contrast to the chaos he had just witnessed. The fleet, battered but intact, floated silently within the nebula's swirling embrace. His hands trembled as he replayed Vanguard's words in his mind. The galaxy will come. The choice is yours. But was it his choice? Xarian was just an explorer. He hadn't asked for this power or responsibility. Yet, deep down, he knew he couldn't walk away. The galaxy would never leave the fleet alone, not after what it had witnessed. The hidden records. Vanguard interrupted his thoughts. Commander Xarian, you must know the truth before you decide the fleet's fate. Humanity's downfall was not merely a war. It was a betrayal, one that began long before the final battle. The chamber dimmed, and holographic projections filled the air. Xarian saw humans, powerful, brilliant, and united, standing alongside alien allies in what appeared to be a great council. The scene was serene, almost hopeful, but as the images shifted, the unity fractured. Arguments broke out, faces turned grim, and secret meetings took place in shadowy corners. This council, Vanguard explained, was meant to preserve peace, but fear of humanity's growing influence turned allies into enemies. The Zokarn led the effort, but they were not alone. The projection changed again, showing fleets of alien ships gathering in secret. Xarian recognized Zokarn vessels, but there were others too, sleek golden ships and angular vessels with glowing blue engines. Who are they? Xerion asked, pointing to the unfamiliar ships. Vanguard paused, as if reluctant to answer. The Seraph Coalition. They were humanity's closest allies, trusted above all others. They provided intelligence, resources, and military aid. But they also delivered the fatal blow. Xerion's stomach churned. The Seraph betrayed them. Yes. At the height of the conflict, the Seraph turned their weapons on humanity, sealing the fleet's fate. It was their betrayal that forced humanity to create the temporal rewriter, hoping to undo the destruction. But they never had the chance to use it. The projection ended, leaving Xerion alone with his thoughts. His chest felt tight as he pieced together the enormity of what he had learned. Humanity had been destroyed not because of their strength, but because of their trust that had been weaponized against them. The Seraph reveal. As Xerion processed this revelation, the ship's sensors blared a new warning. Vanguard's voice rang out. Multiple ships approaching. Energy signatures match Seraph Coalition designs. Prepare for contact. Xerion's eyes widened. The Seraph? They're still out there. Correct. And it seems they are aware of the fleet's reactivation. Moments later, a Seraph envoy ship appeared on the main display. Its sleek, golden hull gleamed against the dark backdrop of the nebula. Xerion's communication panel flickered, and a soft, melodic voice came through. Unidentified vessel, this is High Envoy Seller of the Seraph Coalition. You are in possession of forbidden technology. Stand down and prepare for immediate extraction. Xerion's jaw tightened. Forbidden technology. You mean the human fleet. What gives you the right to claim it? Seller's voice remained calm but carried an unmistakable edge. The human fleet is a relic of the past. It threatens the stability of the galaxy. Surrender it now, or face the consequences. Xerion leaned forward, his anger bubbling to the surface. You betrayed them. Humanity trusted you, and you destroy them. Now you expect me to hand over their legacy. Never. For the first time, Seller's tone faltered. You don't understand the danger you're playing with. That fleet isn't salvation. It's devastation. If it fully awakens, it will destroy everything. We acted to protect the galaxy then, and we'll do it again if we must. The Seraph's plan. Outside the nebula, more Seraph ships appeared, their golden hulls reflecting the faint glow of distant stars. Xerion watched as they began forming a blockade around the human fleet, their movements precise and coordinated. Vanguard analyzed the situation. The Seraph are deploying suppression fields. If successful, they will immobilize the fleet and seize control. Xerion's fists clenched. How do we stop them? They fear us because they know what we are capable of. Use that fear, but be cautious. Provoking them too soon could lead to a full-scale battle. Xerion hesitated. He wasn't a warrior, and he didn't want to start a war. But he couldn't let the Seraph erase humanity's legacy. What about the temporal rewriter? Could we use it to disable their ships? Vanguard's response was firm. The device is not a weapon to be used lightly. Its activation requires moral certainty and precision. Are you prepared to make such a decision? Xerion's mind raced. He wasn't sure of anything anymore, but he knew one thing. The Seraph couldn't be allowed to take the fleet. A dangerous alliance. As Xerion debated his next move, another signal interrupted the comms. This time, it wasn't Seraph, it was Zokarn. Chancellor Varish appeared on the screen, his 6 eyes gleaming with malice. So, the Seraph have found you too, he sneered. Typical cowards, swooping in to finish what they started. Xerion glared at the Zokarn leader. Why are you contacting me? You attacked us first. Varish smirked. Because I see an opportunity. The Seraph betrayed humanity, and now they've come to destroy what's left of it. You and I have a common enemy. Xerion recoiled at the thought of working with the Zokarn. But Varish wasn't done. You don't have to trust me, Explorer. Just know this. The Seraph won't stop until the fleet is dismantled. And if they take it, they'll erase you too. The fleet's choice. Vanguard's voice interrupted the tension. "Commander Xerion, the fleet awaits your command. Will you trust the Zokarn, fight the Sereth, or seek another path?" Xerion stood frozen, the weight of history pressing down on him. The fleet had survived betrayal once before, but could it survive this? Could he find a way to unite these fractured factions, or was another war inevitable? The choice was his, and the galaxy's future hung in the balance. The final battle. The nebula was alive with tension. The human fleet, slowly awakening to its former glory, floated between two forces, the Sereth Coalition's golden blockade and the Zokarn Dominion's menacing warships. Xerion stood in the battleship's command chamber, his eyes darting between holographic projections of both fleets. The weight of the galaxy's history bore down on him, and the decision he faced would shape its future. A fragile alliance. Chancellor Varish's hologram flickered on the console. "You need us, Explorer. The Sereth won't stop until the fleet is gone. You can't fight them alone." Xerion clenched his fists. The Zokarn were as much to blame for humanity's downfall as the Sereth. But Varish wasn't wrong. The human fleet was powerful, but it wasn't fully operational. The Sereth blockade had already deployed suppression fields, weakening the fleet's ability to defend itself. Before Xerion could respond, the Sereth envoy, Sealer, cut in. Her calm voice dripped with warning. "Do not trust the Zokarn, Xerion. They thrive on destruction. Work with us instead, and we can ensure the fleet is dismantled safely." Xerion glared at the holograms of his would-be allies. "You both want the same thing, to erase humanity's legacy. Why should I trust either of you?" Varish sneered. "The Sereth don't want to dismantle a fleet. They want to control it. They betrayed humanity once. They'll do it again." Seller's golden eyes narrowed. "And the Zokarn would use this fleet to conquer the galaxy, just as they always intended. Don't let history repeat itself." Xerion slammed his hand on the console. "Enough." His voice echoed through the chamber. "I don't trust either of you. If this fleet is humanity's legacy, it deserves better than to be destroyed or enslaved. The fleet awakens fully." Vanguard's voice broke through the silence. "Commander Xerion, the fleet has reached 87% operational capacity. Full systems will be online within one cycle. Your decision must be made before then." Xerion took a deep breath. He didn't have the luxury of time. The Sereth ships were tightening their blockade, their suppression fields draining energy from the human fleet. Meanwhile, the Zokarn forces were positioning their warships for an ambush. He turned to Vanguard. "Can we disable the suppression fields?" A coordinated strike against the Sereth command vessels could disrupt their fields, but it would provoke an all-out assault. Xerion nodded. "Do it, if they want to fight. We'll give them one." The battle begins. The human fleet roared to life. Cannons that had lain dormant for millennia powered up, their energy glowing brighter than the nebula's swirling gases. Xerion's battleship fired the first shot, a concentrated plasma beam that tore through one of the Sereth command ships. The suppression fields flickered, and several smaller human vessels surged forward, their engines blazing. The Sereth fleet responded immediately, unleashing a barrage of golden energy blasts. The nebula lit up with the clash of weapons, a chaotic dance of destruction. The Zokarn seized the opportunity, their warships darting into the fray. Varish's voice echoed through the comms. "Good. Let the Sereth taste their own defeat." But Xerion knew better. The Zokarn weren't allies. They were opportunists. As the Sereth turned their focus to the humans, the Zokarn began targeting both fleets indiscriminately, their weapons slicing through ships without mercy. A desperate maneuver. In the command chamber, Xerion watched the chaos unfold, his heart pounding. The human fleet was holding its own, but it was vastly outnumbered. Even with their advanced technology, they couldn't withstand a prolonged assault from both sides. Vanguard's voice interrupted his thoughts. The temporal rewriter is now within operational parameters. Activation will require your direct authorization. Xerion froze. The device was his last resort. It could end the battle in an instant, but at what cost? "Vanguard," he said, his voice trembling. "Is there a way to use the rewriter without erasing everything?" The AI paused. "A localized activation is possible. It would disable all hostile forces within the nebula while preserving the integrity of the fleet. However, the energy required would render the fleet inoperable for an extended period." Xerion's mind raced. If he used the rewriter, the fleet would survive, but it would be vulnerable. If he didn't, the fleet and humanity's legacy could be destroyed. He made his decision. Do it. The temporal rewriter activates. The battleship's core chamber glowed with golden light as the temporal rewriter powered up. The energy it emitted was unlike anything Xerion had ever seen. Raw, unrelenting, and impossibly beautiful. Across the battlefield, both the Sereth and Zokarn forces detected the activation. Panic spread through their ranks as they scrambled to retreat, but it was too late. The rewriter unleashed a pulse of energy that rippled through the nebula. Time itself seemed to warp and bend as the pulse struck every hostile ship. Their systems shut down instantly, their weapons disintegrating into harmless fragments. The Sereth and Zokarn fleets were left adrift, powerless, and defeated. The aftermath. Xerion slumped against the console, exhausted but relieved. The nebula was eerily quiet now, the battle over in an instant. The human fleet, though weakened, remained intact. Vanguard's voice was softer now, almost reverent. The temporal rewriter has completed its task. Hostile forces neutralized. The fleet will enter recovery mode. Estimated time to full functionality: 12 cycles. Xerion stared at the projections of the disabled Sereth and Zokarn ships. They were no longer a threat, but the galaxy would soon know of the fleet's power. He had bought humanity's legacy a moment of peace, but at what cost? A new legacy. As Xerion gazed out at the silent nebula, a thought struck him. This fleet wasn't just a weapon or a relic. It was a chance to rebuild, to learn from the mistakes of the past. He turned to Vanguard. The fleet isn't just humanity's legacy. It's a legacy for the entire galaxy. If I'm going to protect it, we need to do more than fight. We need to be better. Vanguard's voice carried a hint of approval. Acknowledged, Commander Xerion. The galaxy will know that humanity's story is not over, and neither is yours. Humanity's legacy. The nebula lay still, its swirling gases framing a fleet that had stood the test of time and betrayal. Xerion, standing in the command chamber of the flagship, felt the weight of his actions pressing heavily on his shoulders. The temporal rewriter had saved the fleet, but left it vulnerable. The Zokarn and Sereth vessels drifted powerless, their lights extinguished, their crews no doubt shaken by the weapon's incomprehensible power. Vanguard's voice broke the silence. The fleet is transitioning to recovery mode. All systems are stabilizing, but full operational capacity will require significant time. Xerion leaned against the console, staring at the projections of the dormant enemy ships. "What happens now?" he asked quietly. "They'll come back, won't they? Stronger, smarter, and more determined. The galaxy now knows what was forgotten." Vanguard replied. "They will return, but what they face will depend on the choices you make." Xerion nodded, his resolve hardening. He had come too far to let the fleet fall again. But the solution couldn't be found in weapons alone. The unexpected transmission. As the fleet began to stabilize, an unexpected transmission crackled through the comms. It wasn't Sereth or Zokarn. It was a third party. The signal was faint but unmistakably human. Xerion froze as Vanguard translated the message. "This is Sanctuary Prime, broadcasting to any remaining human vessels. We detected your activation. If you are receiving this, know that humanity endures. Coordinates attached." Xerion's heart raced. Humanity endures. He whispered, disbelief coloring his voice. are they saying? There are survivors. Vanguard's tone shifted, almost reverent. Sanctuary Prime was a last refuge, a hidden colony established in the final days of the betrayal. Its existence was classified at the highest levels. If it remains active, then humanity's legacy is more than this fleet. It is alive. The holographic map updated, displaying a set of coordinates deep within uncharted space. Xarian stared at the map, his mind reeling. Humanity wasn't just a relic of the past. It was a thread still woven into the fabric of the galaxy. The galactic response. Outside the nebula, the galaxy was already stirring. The Zokarn Dominion and Seraph Coalition scrambled to recover from their defeat, their leaders reeling from the fleet's power and the activation of the temporal rewriter. High Chancellor Varish sat in his darkened chamber, his 6 eyes narrowed with fury. The galaxy will never accept the return of humanity's fleet, he growled to his advisors. If we cannot destroy them outright, we will ensure they are feared and hated by all. In contrast, High Envoy Seller of the Seraph Coalition convened a secret council. The fleet's activation changes everything, she said, her melodic voice tinged with unease. We cannot fight them alone. We must unite the galaxy against this threat, or perhaps align with them before it's too late. Both factions prepared their next moves, their strategies colored by fear, anger, and the knowledge that humanity's legacy was no longer a myth. A difficult decision. Back on the fleet's flagship, Xarian stood before the glowing console, his mind racing. The message from Sanctuary Prime was a beacon of hope, but it was also a risk. If humanity's enemies intercepted the signal, the hidden colony would be in grave danger. What do we do, Vanguard? Xarian asked. Do we go to them? Do we stay and defend the fleet? How do we protect a legacy this big? The choice is yours, Commander, Vanguard replied. But know this, the fleet's purpose is not just to defend. It is to inspire. If humanity still endures, they must see what remains of their strength, their ingenuity, their hope. Xarian took a deep breath. The galaxy was watching now. The fleet's activation had sent ripples through every star system. Staying hidden was no longer an option. We go to them, Xarian said firmly. We find Sanctuary Prime. And when we do, we make sure the galaxy understands that humanity's return isn't a threat. It's a chance to make things right. The journey begins. The fleet began its slow departure from the nebula, its ships glowing faintly as they navigated the swirling gases. Xarian, seated in the command chair for the first time, felt both the enormity of the task ahead and the faintest glimmer of hope. As they approached the edge of the nebula, Vanguard spoke again. Commander Xarian, the Zokarn and Seraph forces have regained partial functionality. They are retreating, but will likely regroup. Xarian nodded. Let them. They'll see what this fleet is truly capable of soon enough. A galaxy forever changed. The galaxy was already buzzing with rumors. Tales of the human fleet's awakening spread like wildfire. Some called it a miracle. Others, a nightmare. Across countless worlds, people debated what the return of humanity would mean. For some, it sparked fear. For others, it ignited hope. In the shadowy corners of the galaxy, other factions began to take notice. Rogue empires, outlaw coalitions, and forgotten species all had heard the stories. And for the first time in centuries, they all asked the same question. What happens next? The final message. As the fleet left the nebula, Xarian stood on the observation deck, gazing out at the stars. The holographic projection of Sanctuary Prime's coordinates glowed faintly beside him. Do you think they'll accept us, Vanguard? Xarian asked quietly. Humanity has always been divided, the eye replied. But they are also resilient. If anyone can unite a fractured galaxy, it is them. Xarian smiled faintly, a sense of determination settling over him. He didn't know what awaited them at Sanctuary Prime, but he knew one thing for certain. The story of humanity was far from over. And as the fleet vanished into the starry void, a quiet whisper echoed through the ship's systems, almost too faint to hear. We are watching.